According to the 1954 Webster's Dictionary, the word occult is defined as hidden from the eye or understanding. The phrase occult sciences means certain so-called sciences of the Middle Ages as alchemy, necromancy, or magic and astrology. The word esoteric is taught only to a select number and not intelligible to a general body of disciples, designed for and understood only by the initiated. And that's been the way a lot of symbolism has been used, wielded against a public generally kept ignorant of its deeper meanings for a long, long time, ourselves included. But I don't know if you guys have noticed not just how dark, but blatantly occultic society is getting as a whole. And I'm not just talking about those music award shows which get more and more in your face every year, to the point that this year you had Taylor Swift singing about how she wanted to be lit up in front of a giant cobra, or Nicki Minaj singing a song down in the Oculus with giant gold unicorns coming up out of the stage while she had giant gold ISIS wings on her back. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the movies, the TV shows, the products. I mean, it's blatantly everywhere and in your face. Way more than it has ever been.
I'm the owner, I guess, manager, whatever you want to call it, of Enchantment in New York City. I guess the best term for it would be an occult supply store. We don't do spells for people, we sell them the ingredients to do them themselves.
You are going to use witchcraft against Justice Kavanaugh.
Yep.
What is the ritual that you are undertaking?
Well, there will be effigies, photos, graveyard dirt, coffin nails, open flames, the whole bit.
It's called the TV Ritual Challenge. The instructions for this ritual is you get an old analog television with static. You turn the volume up and you turn the lights off. Now you repeat a phrase 3 times. I ask all those who wonder about this world, manifest.
Hail Satan! Hail Satan!
And I believe, for me, that being a Satanist is about trying to continually advocate for people. Satanism is a love affair with the self.
I mean, with artificial intelligence, we are summoning the demon.
And these things that we're summoning into the world now are not demons, they're not evil, but they're more like the Lovecraftian great old ones.
And you have to use a lot of intuition about how to craft them. It's a bit more like a black magic than sort of science at this point, but it's really fun.
And we're all being acclimated to this en masse. Ideas that used to be considered occult are now not just being normalized to the general public, but proselytized all over the place to the public in ways that I can only believe because I saw it for myself in 2018, just the level that we're at now. And it's getting to a point where every year we're asking ourselves, how much more blatant can this possibly get? To start, I want to show you guys, just for one quick example, Wikipedia, the definition for Luciferianism. If you've ever looked this up on Wikipedia, it's been defined in a way that makes it sound like, of all belief systems humans could possibly have, this one is the best possible one. Just check this out for a second. They start out by explaining that Luciferianism is a belief system that venerates the essential characteristics affixed to Lucifer, which I would point out, just by the way, that just depends on who you ask. But anyway, the tradition influenced by Gnosticism usually reveres Lucifer not as the devil, but as a liberator, a guardian, a guiding spirit, or even the true God as opposed to Jehovah. He's like your best Care Bear friend, according to this. And under general beliefs, it says, sometimes mistakenly associated with Satanism due to the Christian interpretation of the fallen angel, Luciferianism is a wholly different belief system and does not revere the devil figure or most characteristics typically affixed to Satan. Rather, Lucifer in this context is seen as one of many morning stars, a symbol of enlightenment, independence, and human progression, and is often used interchangeably with similar figures from a range of ancient beliefs, such as the Greek Titan Prometheus or the Jewish Talmudic figure Lilith. And at any point when I'm reading this, you can go ahead and cue like the Hallmark movie music in the background, because that's what this sounds like to me. Luciferians generally support the protection of the natural world. Both the arts and sciences are crucial to human development, and thus both are cherished. Luciferians think that humans should be focused on this life and how to make the most of it every single day. The ability to recognize both good and evil, and to accept that all actions have both positive and negative consequences, and to actively influence one's environment is a key factor. And then it goes on to talk about the continual cycle of liberation, illumination, and apotheosis. And then they just keep throwing out more of these bywords and phrases about freedom of will and highlighting truth and your ultimate potential. And it's such a twisting. It's such a twisting.
This wiki definition has been written by the Council for the Advancement and Clarification of Lucifer and the New Golden Dawn of the Ages of the Aura of the Hidden Cipher.
So make the most of every day, guys, by becoming a Luciferian. I don't know. I just think it's kind of insane. Wikipedia might as well be selling Luciferianism, just by the way, which is actually what Hollywood's been doing for a really long time. But now the mainstream media is actually caught up. And that's kind of what this report is about. They're not going to tell you that you're taking the left-hand path to worshiping yourself.
Satanism is a love affair with the self.
Or why it's tied to the same lie that's been told since hundreds of years ago about ye shall be as gods, which we're seeing everywhere right now in this society.
Emerging with machines, we will enter a new age. In the post-human era, we become Homo superior. We become a new species. We're talking about humanity becoming like the gods. What do you think?
We're being inundated with it. It's in your face. It's all over the place. Take the all-seeing eye, for example. Seemingly no longer tied to its conspiratorial past, as apparently more and more people just forget history that it even existed before we had computers and smartphones. The image of the all-seeing eye is now becoming pervasive. I mean, it's all over the place. You can see it on businesses everywhere, from bakeries to breweries to dispensaries. It's on all sorts of products now, from organic juices to kombucha to dishes and t-shirts. It's everywhere. Do people even know what they're wearing? Do they even know what this symbol stands for? Well, if you go look that up, you'll see it's a symbol of the Enlightenment. And what's Enlightenment? We just saw. It's a symbol of Luciferianism. Wow, these things are all connected somehow. It's kind of weird, right? They even had a 666 one-eye challenge. One of those challenges that people do on YouTube. They even had that this year. And the mainstream media dutifully explained to people how to do it for people that didn't know how. So they could do the one eye that you usually only see done by music stars like Lady Gaga. Now everyone's going to be doing that because that's just the coolest new thing to do in 2018. And speaking of the All-Seeing Eye, 2018 also welcomed the first ever Hermetic International Film Festival, where they showed dozens of esoteric films, some with concealed but also with open symbolism and messages, and they screened them and awarded prizes in Venice, Italy. And the festival's manifesto openly states not only that the occult sciences of alchemy, astrology, and magic form the basis of the world's ensuing scientific discoveries, which is just a simple fact for anyone who does any research at all, and that the arcane has never stopped being a silent companion of modern and postmodern culture. As for unexpectedly finding the faith in the occult, also at the very core of modern beliefs and ideologies, quote unquote. But it notes, quote, today this vast system of concealed knowledge, this ancient wisdom, once hermetically sealed, has been opened up for the sake of anybody who wants to see behind the curtains of visible reality. So it's all out in your face now, and it's being declared that is it. The curtains have been pulled back, and the gloves are off, and this is just, everybody's going to be initiated now, because this is all out in the open now. And I'm going to throw this in there too, just because I saw it, and it kind of proves the point.
She will be heading up a gender-neutral clothing line for children.
Celine Dion just released a new clothing line via the company New New New. She merged with it's called Celine New New New, which is supposedly for children and babies. That has to do with stripping them of especially their gender identity and replacing cute, cuddly, stuffed animals you would normally give to babies with demon monsters, and covering kids of all ages down to newborns in skulls and declaring that they're part of the new order, as if a baby even understands a deeper meaning to any of that at all. She has a completely self-absorbed commercial for it where she's constantly running around going, I'm Celine Dion.
I'm Celine Dion. I'm Celine Dion. I'm Celine Dion.
Which shows her breaking into a hospital nursery and blowing black dust on babies and transforming them, because they're all dressed in pink and blue, gender-specific colors or whatever. So she's got to blow the black dust on the babies and suck their gender away and cover them in skulls and New Order logos and everything. And then she gets arrested and once again protests, but I'm Celine Dion.
I can't believe they called security. I mean, oh, come on, I'm Celine Dion. It's okay. I'm Celine Dion.
Like, if you just sing that one overplayed aneurysm-inducing song from the movie Titanic that somehow gives you the right to break into a nursery and blow black nano dust on infants and try to brainwash them into your humanist cult.
I mean, it seems like they just have this agenda of degradation, but it's pretty weird since this stuff is supposed to be based on an understanding and an initiation, and they're throwing it on babies who have 2 days in this world.
And why would I call it a humanist cult? Because on the website for Celine New, Dion introduces the world to her clothes by claiming this will inspire children to be free, but not before saying that fashion has the power to shape people's minds. So, question, if you're shaping people's minds, are they truly free? The About page openly admits that her clothing brand is meant to serve as a platform for, quote, a new humanistic education. Without going off on a long tangent about humanism and the people behind it, let me just say that humanism is the human-centered religion. They don't believe in a soul, they don't believe in God. If they believe in anything, it's worshiping themselves. Which, kind of, if you think about it too long, sounds an awful lot like the Luciferianism that I just mentioned.
Satanism is a love affair with the self.
They're also told that anybody's values are as good as anybody else's, and whatever you choose will be right for you because you chose it. Which might sound good for you if you're just only thinking of yourself for about 5 seconds, but if you take that out to its logical conclusion, what you're really talking about is an Aleister Crowley-like belief in doest thou wilt. And once you start going down the road of doest thou wilt, what you're really saying is that it's no longer possible to say that any given action is wrong or bad or evil because it's all just doest thou wilt. It's what you think is a moral imperative. Well, what do you think Crowley thought was moral? There's no such thing as evil or good anymore under that belief system, okay? And without going totally off track down that road, it's the religion that Julian Huxley, Brave New World author Aldous Huxley's brother, who happened to be the first Director General of UNESCO, just by the way, prescribed as the coming New World religion that would replace all others. A world religion that would rise up once the people of the world were united under a global government. So it's kind of interesting to see it so prominently being pushed on not just the masses, but children and babies.
Well, it's pretty clear there's some other agenda at work here, and maybe there are a few parents who might want this clothing, but for me, and I would just have to imagine most people, I just think, why would you want any of these messages put on your kid when they're just supposed to be new to the world, innocent, babies?
Well, you remember the pictures that came out of the surrealist Rothschild Eyes Wide Shut masquerade ball back in the 70s, right?
I've seen them, yeah.
Look at the pictures on the Instagram of this company, New. Look at the kind of pictures they're posting of children.
Yeah, once again, not only do they have all these symbols and creepy things on the clothing, but obviously it's not just about the fashion of the clothes they design. It's somehow about getting children and toddlers to wear demonic, masks and weird antlers and horns, and it's obviously referencing something very occultic and probably very dark.
And just on a side note, why are they telling Celine Dion she should design clothes anyways? I mean, these kids look depressed wearing these clothes. I mean, look at the faces that these kids are making in her clothes on this website. See these kids? Could they look more depressed about having to wear these clothes? What is this? I mean, this girl actually looks outraged that she has to wear this baked potato wrapper jacket. I don't know what this is. I don't even know. Look at that. That is the kind of face you make when you literally couldn't even find a fiber within your body to care less about anything, let alone whatever those pants are. Look at this kid. See that face right there? That is the face of a kid who's old enough to at least recognize that that is not how the alphabet goes. He looks like he's asking to be dressed in something else. Look at that. Look at that. That's like a baby having a midlife crisis. These kids look sad. They look like they're being forced to do this. It's kind of hard to look at.
Celine Dion has been shown in studies to cause depression, especially in people under 18.
Guys, relax, easy. I'm Celine Dion.
And that's the thing about these stars now. It's gone beyond just I'm famous, so do what I say or think how I think or dress like me. It's taking on a new form of deification to a level that I've never before seen. This summer, we went to see a Smashing Pumpkins concert because when I was a teenager, that was one of my favorite bands, and I didn't go to a lot of concerts. I never really did. And Aaron's never been to a Smashing Pumpkins concert. So this summer, they all got back together. We thought, well, why not? We'll go see a concert. And this should tell you how little I obviously understood anything about symbolism or the hidden meanings of anything as a teenager. The concert starts out with Billy Corgan singing the song Disarm to a slideshow of pictures of himself as a kid. And in some of the pictures, he's got 666 written across his forehead. But then later in the pictures, now he's lighting up his third eye because he's illuminated and he's calling himself the Christ Child. And the slideshow itself set the whole tone for this concert, which he then proceeded to, I guess, reimagine the entire Smashing Pumpkins catalog or just admit what all the songs were about. I'm not really sure, but into this journey to apotheosis where he basically declares himself a god. In another song, he used 2 giant video screens to project an image of his head with multiple cobras protruding out the back of it, slowly merging with a female deity, and they merged together. He projected images of himself on tarot cards. There was just a ton of religious and illuminated symbolism all over everything the whole time, song after song. But I think Aaron would agree with me in saying that the creepiest part had to be the Stairway to Heaven cover that involved guys in black hooded robes like monks carrying big crosses in a procession where they actually wheeled out a religious statue of Billy Corgan dressed as some kind of, I don't know, red pope or something, and they wheeled it around the floor of the venue so that all of his fans could touch it and film it and reach for it and basically worship not just Corgan the singer, but literally worship an idol of Corgan. Literally.
And it wasn't even just about mocking religion or, kind of parodying that, which you see plenty, and, it is what it is. People have their free speech. It was about transforming into worshiping Billy Corgan, who repeatedly said, he said on stage that they are the illuminated. He called himself perfect. He referenced all this Illuminati philosophy. They had this sort of rising Luciferian statue that looked like it came out of Rockefeller Plaza. It was just weird because people go to concerts to hear the songs that they know, that they like. And it's probably frustrating for bands who have to play them over and over. But this was just totally beyond that. It was the unveiling of a sort of hidden philosophy that I guess Smashing Pumpkin fans have been exposed to all these years, and finally it's out in the open. And if you go to the show and pay attention and know what you're looking at, Billy Corgan's just admitting the whole thing. And I don't know, I have been to a lot of concerts, and it was mostly when I was a teenager. Probably didn't know what I was looking at, but still, this was just way over the top compared to anything I've ever seen.
I mean, there were people up in the stands next to us that were literally, they were doing the We're Not Worthy bowing from Wayne's World, worshiping. I would say it was mock worship in a way, but it just, there was something about it that seemed so real. And on his Instagram account, promoting the idea of take pictures with my idol, take pictures with it and share it on social media with your friends, how you worship me, basically. And people are doing it in mass.
They were worshiping him, and it wasn't just, blinging a bunch of symbols that you can figure out what they mean. There's kind of a story behind it. There was I don't know, it was almost like a a sermon or something mixed into these songs and reinterpreted in the stuff they were showing.
Yeah, so being there felt like you're participating in that. That's why it was not that long after that we left. We just left the concert. We didn't stay and watch the rest of it. It was too much. We left. Aaron and I left. We were probably the only, I don't know, no one else left, but I was just too disgusted. It was too disgusting to watch that anymore and be a part of that, sit there. It felt sickening.
Well, I like the music, but I'm not going to join the cult of Corgan.
Yeah, I'm not going to join the Billy Corgan cult, which it literally was as if you were in a sermon. I'm entirely sure that the message that Corgan was trying to share was lost on probably 98% of the people who saw that tour. That's how bad it got. And Corgan is not the only star who is essentially deified himself. Like, this is the new thing now. This year's Met Gala, for example, 2018 Met Gala theme, which was completely approved by the Vatican, just by the way, of course it was entitled Heavenly Bodies, Fashion and the Catholic Imagination, which was supposedly designed to, quote, create a dialogue between fashion and the masterworks of religious art. And in fact, the Sistine Chapel sacristy loaned out papal garb for this event, which had never been seen outside of the Vatican for any other reason. So they thought this was the moment for that. This was the time. And here's the result. You have stars dressed not just as high religious figures, but angels and saints. And Sarah Jessica Parker wearing a full nativity scene as a decoration on her head. And of course, the whole shebang just wouldn't have been right without Madonna showing up in a black dress with a giant cross on it, wearing a crown of crosses on her head, so she can hang out with a bunch of guys in hooded robes and sing like a prayer.
I wanted to come in on a cross, but I think that was a bit extra for the Met.
And people like Mitt Romney pay $30,000 to attend this thing, and you have all the paparazzi there, and the mainstream magazines are selling it to everyone as glamorous in the grocery store checkout aisles.
Jesus, we see you, buddy! Jesus and Mary! Jesus and Mary!
So that shoppers can then idolize stars who have now, again, who have literally deified themselves. It's above and beyond. And the other thing that's gone on this year is that witchcraft has now gone totally mainstream. It's completely mainstream now. And the mainstream media is right there dutifully selling it as a hip, trendy, powerful thing to do, with no downsides, apparently. In fact, 2018 was declared the year of the witch. They have this argument which it makes sense superficially if you don't know how much of history has been pushed along and manipulated in the background. But the argument they're making is that during the Industrial Revolution, there was a rise in spiritualism and you had all those people doing seances. Then, as a response to the turmoil of the 60s and 70s with the Vietnam War and all of the rioting and stuff like that, that gave birth supposedly to the New Age, according to this line of talk, which is actually completely untrue. If you look into the Luciferian Lucis Trust, you'll find out way more on that. It's been around for quite a long time. New Age did not just suddenly spring up in the 60s and 70s. But anyway, and now that we're in the era of Trump and the rise of the Fourth Industrial Revolution, you have an entire generation that's been defined as losing hope politically and economically, and thus, in a society that's largely otherwise done away with God, the millennial crowd is now turning to the occult and witchcraft to regain a feeling of control. And again, never mind that all of society has been purposefully engineered and steered in this direction for a long, long time, but it's also converging with this hashtag #MeToo feminist movement, which is saying that women also feel disempowered by the patriarchy and the system. So in order for women to get back their sense of power, they're all turning towards witchcraft and the occult also, so they can assert power over the patriarchy or some such explanation along those lines. So what you actually had toward the latter part of 2018 was article after article making it clear that we're not just seeing a revival in occult practices, but you have articles straight up selling witchcraft, promoting it as an answer to an array of life's problems, such as mainstream publications like Esquire, which had a piece which ends with a ploy of why wouldn't you want to be a witch? because, quote, "The promise of witchcraft offers instant gratification. It's the glamorous answer to taking power into one's hands and working alongside like minds to heed bankable results outside of protests or voting. And access to that alternative reality can be an important escape, especially since, depending on your own beliefs, you can find truth in it. After all, what's the harm in hexing? Why not form a coven? Why shouldn't we entertain signing the Book of the Beast in order to bask in immortality? At the most, you might stumble upon an alternative reality defined by demons and goats. Or at least that's how we'll look back on 2018, when charting the evolution of the occult in our movies and TV shows. At most, you might stumble upon an alternative reality defined by demons. I think that's a pretty bad deal. I don't think that's something people want to stumble upon. And that's the thing. They're selling this all to people as if it has absolutely no spiritual consequences whatsoever. Because all these Pew polls are showing that, God has been pretty much removed from society altogether, and so there's this vacuum that needs to be filled, and this is the answer they're selling to people right now, is witchcraft and the occult and Luciferianism. And I'm saying that if you actually do research into history, this is why history is so important. Back when I was in high school and used to say, why do we have to learn all this old stuff? Why does it even matter? Because if you forget history, then you don't have any context for what's actually going on. This has been the plan for a very long time for the society we're living in. This didn't just happen. This is being pushed in this direction for hundreds of years. And if you want to see more on that, you can watch Aaron's recent report on the Bavarian Illuminati.
And not by churches, but by the wisdom of man. Much of it based on the old pagan systems, and all working towards what they considered to be a new world order, or a novus seclorum of the ages.
And what their whole situation was, and their goals, and what they were striving for. But I will say, they haven't removed God altogether, because TBS is now going to release a new sitcom about how God, portrayed as a burned-out alcoholic by actor Steve Buscemi, decides to destroy the world because it just sucks, right? So a handful of angels have to go save the world from burned-out alcoholic God. So how's that for a twist? Anyway, the point is the occult is openly, fully being sold to the masses now. This is trendy, this is a hip thing to do. It's trendy now. If you've been to a mall lately, which I had to do for that unicorn symbolism report I did a while back, that's the first time I set foot in a mall in years, you will find that there are many boutique stores that carry an occult or witchcraft section in the store now. Of course, they don't call it that. They actually refer to it as being free-spirited or something like that. But you have unoriginal stores everywhere trying to be edgy and cool, Urban Outfitters and Spencer's, and they're selling witchcraft books and tools like they're just selling people another t-shirt or bumper sticker. The makeup chain Sephora this year even tried to sell a starter witchcraft kit. But it was poo-pooed. Not because it's wrong, by the way, to indoctrinate a bunch of young girls into occult practices that they couldn't possibly understand the ramifications of, but because practitioners of the craft came out and were outraged that the store was attempting to appropriate their traditions. And so that's rude to do. So that was the backlash on that. But the buck stops on the screen, because the kinds of movies that are coming out now, I don't even think some of the stuff that's coming out now in films would have been allowed even 10 years ago. Definitely not when I was a kid. My mother took my 10-year-old to see the new Jack Black film, The House of the Clock in Its Walls, a couple months ago, thinking it'd be a funny movie for kids because the plot revolves around a 10-year-old who gets to go live with his zany uncle, Jack Black. But the rest of the story is that Jack Black is a warlock, and he ends up teaching the 10-year-old how to also become a warlock via spell books with pages that look like they were taken straight out of Manly P. Hall's The Secret Teachings of All Ages. So you have real symbols being used. They're not making it up. They're not using fake made-up stuff for the sake of Hollywood. They're using real stuff. And sorry for the spoiler, but the 10-year-old ends up participating in a necromancy blood ritual on screen, which brings back Kyle MacLachlan, who's an even more powerful evil warlock who the plot says was given a deadly spell to destroy the whole world by entering into a blood pact with a fallen angel straight out of the book of Enoch. Okay? They're not even trying to make stuff up. They're talking about these things. And not to spoil it for you even more, but in the end, the kid defeats Kyle MacLachlan and gets back at his bullies with magic, and then gets the girl, because he's a cool warlock now. Which I personally think sends a much more blatant, straightforward message to today's kids in one film than all 7 Harry Potter books and the ensuing movies ever did.
They didn't just imply that he learned all this magic, the audience learned it too, at least in as much as subliminal messages go straight into your brain's register, and they just flash through a bunch of, like you said, real occultic symbols, and now the audience has those in their brain, including kids and everybody, just as the characters in the story do.
Take a guess why this scene was cut. You have Jack Black's warlock character quizzing his 10-year-old nephew on what is the Lesser Key of Solomon. And the kid answers that it's a spell book that contains 144 spells to summon and control demons. And then the kid asks if demons are real, to which his warlock uncle just kind of makes a face and doesn't say anything at all, and then proceeds to give him a whole bunch more books to learn. And if you pause it real quick, you'll notice that one of the very last books on the stack is the Lesser Key of Solomon. And like I said, the stuff in this movie is not make-believe for a kid's movie. The Lesser Key of Solomon is a real book. And if you check out Wikipedia, which is ever so helpful with information on this, it's actually an anonymous grimoire on demonology to, just like the kid said, summon demons. It was compiled in the mid-17th century and translated and republished in more modern times by Aleister Crowley. Wikipedia has the names of some of the demons that you can supposedly summon with this book, including Baal. Okay? So that's a scene they were considering putting in this film, and it got cut. And I just wonder, was it cut because even the people making the movie realized that was just way, way too far? Or was it just cut for time? And that's what's happening everywhere. They're not just showing this stuff to people. They're teaching it. It's an education in this stuff. How about Sabrina the Teenage Witch? You guys remember Sabrina? You remember Sabrina the Teenage Witch, don't you, Aaron?
Yeah, with the Clarissa Explains It All girl, and it was basically like a 90s version of Bewitched. It was all sitcom-y, and they had bad jokes, and...
Yeah, the wisecracking Black Cat Salem and all that jazz.
I saw it once or twice, yeah.
Yeah. I watched it. I'll admit to everyone, I totally watched it as a teenager. Well, now, Netflix has put up a new version of the show called The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, in which her family, who openly worships Satan, attempt to get her to join the Church of the Night. And as I mentioned earlier, this isn't just a TV show. They're educating the audience in what's a spirit familiar. Here's what a cantation is. Here's some blood rituals. I mean, you name it. It's totally full on. It's not veiled. I don't even know how much of it's made up. The show features a teenage girl, so obviously it's going to be consumed by teenage girls, the same way I consumed the first show in the 90s when I was a teenage girl. And people in the comment section of the ad for this were actually trying to argue that this has nothing to do with the 90s version because this comes from a comic, so people just need to get over it. And my argument is that is so not the point. It's not the point. The masses weren't acclimated with some underground comic. So it's what gets put on major platforms like Netflix and put in movie theaters and distributed for millions of people to see. That's what the population gets programmed with. And there was blood rituals right in the first thing. In fact, here's the thing about that. There are so many blood rituals on TV now. There were so many blood rituals on TV just in October that Brian Moylan over at Vulture.com wrote an article actually titled TV Witches, Please Stop Slicing Open Your Palms for Magic, in which he saw it 3 times in a week on different TV shows. That's how often now this kind of stuff is happening. Because now they've also apparently rebooted another 90s witch show, Charmed, and it's also darker. Because everything is darker. And Moylan goes on to point out that the blood magic and the slicing open of the palms to do some kind of ritual has now become so played out in TV shows that it has its own page on the website TV Tropes. So you had all these TV shows about witches being rebooted and being put on TV to converge with these political movements because our society is being run by algorithms now and they know when to prime the pump with this stuff. And you also had all these witch films come out, and I would have to say of those, and I don't watch a lot of those, but we did actually go see one this last year, and it was probably the most disgusting thing I've ever seen in a movie theater or on a screen in my lifetime. And that has to be the Suspiria remake. And I have to say, I should have known it was going to be bad when the lady working at the movie theater warned us at the beginning when we went in that people were actually walking out on it. I used to be a horror film fan back in the day. And I vaguely remembered the old Suspiria movie had something to do with witches before we watched it. But this was nothing whatsoever like that movie at all. It wasn't just infinitely darker than the original. It wasn't anything like the original. But the last, I want to say 15 minutes or so of the film, actually, it could have been 10 minutes. It felt like it went on forever. But the last section of this film just features a full-on satanic ritual. Just full on and complete with a Baphomet-like figure, chanting and dancing and nude women being cut open and bloody graphic detail. It just goes on and on and on to the point that it wasn't even like stylistic, dramatic filmmaking or any of that. In fact, if you just chopped that part of the film out and put little numbered cues on there, like how to complete a satanic ritual. I mean, that's the closest thing you would ever get to that, is a how-to video. Because that's how, it was not stylistic. There was nothing. And they just widely released this to the public. Nothing whatsoever in this film, this part of the film, was left to the imagination. It was so mind-rapingly vile. I'm just still shocked that we're to a point in society where they can put that on a screen and sell tickets to it with a measly R rating.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say overall, obviously I know they've been saturating the public with messages like this for the past several decades, but I'm pretty shocked the level that it's at now. You've got 70s movies, the 70s Suspiria, I don't know, Rosemary's Baby portrays a satanic cult, and that movie's really creepy, but at the same time, none of those that I've heard of or seen come anywhere close to this. It was just a stain on the mind. It was scarring.
This was just evil. There's no other word to describe this film. It was evil. As in, the world has been dragged closer to hell through the promotion and propagation of a movie such as this. And they've had rituals in other movies. I know people have brought up before the movie Holy Mountain, but that was a cult film. It was an underground film. It was not shown widely in theaters to everyone in a mainstream way where they're trying to put this off on everybody like this movie, which was promoted everywhere. It was promoted all over the place, and they were really pushing it in the media as the film, one of the films to go see. I mean, you called it a taint on the mind, didn't you?
Yeah, it felt scarring. I wish I hadn't, I mean, honestly.
Scarring. They just wanted people to participate in this. They just wanted to put this in the minds of as many people as possible. And laughingly, this movie's being sold everywhere as a film about female empowerment. Just like all the occult witchcraft stuff is being sold as female empowerment. And to me, this is just laughable. I have no idea how anyone's buying that at all, considering you have a movie about evil women who are wickedly murdering each other throughout the film. And during the ritual at the end, you literally have, I mean, I hate to get graphic with it, but you literally have their reproductive organs being cut out. I mean, I'm not really sure how any of that has anything whatsoever to do with feminism or fighting the patriarchy, or maybe I'm just old-fashioned and don't get it. And we're not saying that like, hey guys, you should go check this one out for yourself. I would tell you never see this movie ever.
That's what I was gonna say. I mean, we talk about it.
Don't put this in your mind.
It's interesting, and so you're gonna think maybe I'll see it too. I really wouldn't recommend this one. It was just, I wish I hadn't seen it.
We should have walked out. We could have walked out. I think it got to the point where it was like, you know, I just want to know what level society is at, because a film such as this is definitely a barometer of that. And the fact that it is existing and being shown in a mainstream theater at all in any way proves something very, very bad about our society. And wasn't it at the beginning of that movie, for just a second, don't they show an all-seeing eye or something like that?
Of course they do.
Just to let you know right at the beginning of the movie who's responsible for such messages.
I think some Freemasonic books. And, they're always putting that stuff in the public eye, and the general public doesn't understand it, but they become used to seeing it. So they've kind of rationalized it. And they have a low-level basic explanation. Oh, that's just this. That's the Jay-Z symbol. That's the symbol of prosperity.
That's the eye of providence. That's what you think when you've done literally no research. That's what you would assume.
It's like the gang signs of the dark and wicked, and they don't even know whose name they're calling out.
We actually left the theater asking each other, how much more evil can things even get? I mean, we still go to movies anymore just to see what's the revelation of the method this month. Like, what propaganda are they hiding in this film? What's the message now? And the message now apparently is just beyond the general debasement of society. It's something else entirely that they're trying to get into the minds of the people now. And it's this arc that's been happening ever since Hollywood began, ever since people started having television sets. I mean, here's a good example of the arc. Think of the Batman series, the TV show of the 60s, right? It was all pow and zap. That was the violence. It was pow zap violence, right? But then the 80s, you had Jack Nicholson as the Joker. Things started getting a little darker, right? But look at Batman today. I mean, the themes and the characters and the things that are happening is so dark. It has no resemblance at all to the earlier stuff they were showing people. And that's the arc of darkness that the society has been taken down like a roller coaster ride to hell. I mean, a film like The House of the Clock in Its Walls, made for, I guess, 10-year-olds that they just showed in the theaters a few months ago, that would never have passed for kids' fare when I was a kid, ever.
Not even close.
I mean, and I just wonder if you can even imagine what our kids are going to be saying about in 20 years from now. If this is the arc and it continues, and it's continued in this same straight path this whole time. It's not ever gone back. I mean, we're not ever going to go back to the days of the light fare of the 50s and 60s, or even stuff like Rosemary's Baby. We have so passed the Rubicon on that when we have movies like Suspiria in theaters. See, and people think, oh, that's just a TV show. That's just a movie. That's not a big deal. But when it becomes a trend that's being pushed everywhere in the media, from television shows to Netflix, to the movie theaters, to mainstream media, news outlets, to consumer stores, we're talking about something else entirely. And to understand it, you kind of have to understand how electronic media especially works, with not just a person who takes it in, but people together doing that. Joyce Nelson said it best in her book, The Perfect Machine. She wrote, as real-life experience is increasingly replaced by the mediated, quote-unquote, experience of television viewing, it becomes easy for politicians and market researchers of all sorts to rely on a base of mediated mass experience that can be evoked by appropriate triggers. The TV world, then, becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. The mass mind takes shape, its participants acting according to media-derived impulses and believing them to be their own personal volition, arising out of their own desires and needs. In such a situation, whoever controls the screen controls the future, the past, and the present. So what kind of future is being built here with all of this symbolism that's now crescendoing, and these systems of belief with deep spiritual implications that are being put off on everybody? It's a question worth asking, because this is everywhere. I mean, we're seeing it all over the place, and in 2018, it was just insane how much of it there was. If the trends continue, it's going to continue. So where does that leave society? Where are we headed with that? In The Ascendancy of the Scientific Dictatorship, the Collins brothers actually wrote that through the alchemical sorcery of electronic media, individual consciousness is immersed within a mass mind. TV and electronic media have become instrumental in the fulfillment of the elite's evolutionary script for humanity, which has to do, in their view, with a Masonic vision of a unified consciousness. I'm just saying, I can sense it in my core. This stuff has deeper implications. It's not just a movie anymore. It's not just a TV show. When they're doing everything they can at every turn to implant these concepts and symbols and ideas into everybody's minds.
The general population audience has become accustomed to those images. They've become used to seeing them. They've accepted their presence, but their deeper understanding of what they mean and what they represent has not accelerated at the same pace. So they've just come to be sort of familiar with some rather dark entities who are kind of their neighbors and bedfellows now, without any real understanding of what's been ushered in. And that's even more horrifying than the actual things they're putting on screen.
They're intent on indoctrinating everyone into something that I think most people understand very little about at a time when people are perhaps the most spiritually unprotected that they've been in modern human history. So that is what is going on right now. I've never seen anything like the things we're seeing now. The gloves have come completely off, and that counts, 7 years now of covering the kind of things they show in Super Bowl halftime shows and things like that. But it's never been anything like what we just saw in 2018. It's not even symbolism really anymore. It's just blatant. I mean, the occult has gone full-blown mainstream. It's not hidden anymore. So it's not even technically a cult anymore. And society is being openly initiated. And 2018 is proof.